Welcome, and I hereby call this convention to order. We're going to have a great time. We got some important business, some exciting things to talk about, but most of all, this is a kickoff for the 2016 campaign season, and we need to win in November. So let's light it up, let's do our business, let's have our fun. Welcome to the RPM Convention 2016. We are obligated to read the call of the convention unless somebody's willing to make a motion. A motion has been made and seconded to dispense with the reading of the convention call. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. We will not be reading the convention call. And if you could, we are honored to have the Duluth Honor Guard with us tonight. Would you please stand for the presentation of the colors?
Hold. Left. Those colors. Hoop. Present. Hoops.
And I welcome Paul Ritter to the stage to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I now call on John Brandt, who will lead us in the singing of the national anthem.
I'll take this opportunity to test the mic here. I am a veteran of World War II. (293rd Army Ground Forces Band), Supreme Headquarters, Far East Command, Tokyo, Japan, for General Douglas MacArthur. Being a bass, I can't sing too high, so my highest note will be D above middle C. what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched, were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bomb bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. No time the star-spangled yet wave, nor the land of the brave, and the home of the brave. Forward, forward. Right, east. Forward, move.
Well, thank you very much to our Duluth Honor Guard and Paul and John. That was really special. And if you'd remain standing, I'd like to invite Pastor Rolf Fury of Duluth Gospel Tabernacle Church to lead us in our invocation. Pastor Fury.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, you have been good to America. You have blessed America. You have led and guided and protected America, and we're so thankful for that. And Lord, as this Republican Convention meets and begins to make decisions, Lord, we ask that you would continue to lead and guide every decision made, discussions, that, Lord, there would be unity, that we'd be of one mind and one heart. We know, Lord, that you desire to continue to bless America and use it in great ways. You have a purpose for America. And, Lord, we need to follow you. You tell us in your word that if your people who are called by your name would humble themselves and pray and seek your face and turn from our wicked ways, you would hear from heaven, forgive our sins, and heal our land. And, Lord, we do that tonight. We ask that you would heal our land. Lord, we ask that you would move in a mighty way by your Holy Spirit in each one of our lives. That, Lord, as we discuss tonight, as we make decisions, and Lord, you ask us to pray for the leaders of our countries. First of all, pray for those in authority that we may live in peace, godliness, and honesty. So, Lord, we ask that even as decisions are made for the leaders and those in authority, that you would guide those decisions. And, Lord, for the future of our country, we ask that you'd lead us and guide us. Let there be unity, Lord. Unity under your plan and under your purposes. We ask this in the mighty name of Jesus Christ, our Savior. Amen. Amen. And then if we could pray together the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Fury. You may be seated. Say we have a wonderful opportunity to be greeted to the city of Duluth. What an awesome venue and an awesome place to have a convention. I'd like to welcome Carrie Abbott, the chair of the Duluth Federation of Republican Women, to welcome you to her fair town.
Good evening, Minnesota Republicans and guests. My name is Carrie Abbott, and I'm the president of the Duluth Republican Women and the chair of the Aiken County Republicans. It is my great honor to welcome you here to Duluth. We are so happy to have you here on this gorgeous day. Don't you love cresting the hill to the view of this city? If you have been to Duluth often, you've probably heard that Mark Twain allegedly said the coldest winter he ever spent was a summer in Duluth. Our city has an average temperature of just 39 degrees, and Duluth rarely makes it above 9 degrees from December through February. The cold is only second to the toils of the average snowfall at 86 inches per year. This, by the way, is 284% more snow than the rest of the country. You could say as Northlanders, in DFL territory, which we are, we do a lot of shoveling. For this and many reasons, the Duluth Republican Women have a reputation as a tough club. We are the muscle behind the campaigns in our area. In fact, our DRW club logged over 14,000 volunteer hours in the last election cycle. Thank you, you're welcome. For this reason and many others, the Duluth Republican Women, we are robust, tireless, and if you want, anti-fragile. That concept was put forward by Nassim Nicholas Taleb. He contended there was no word to describe the opposite of fragile, and Taleb says the term anti-fragile describes people, networks, and organizations that not only seem to resist fragility, but are the opposite. They become healthier, more resilient, and stronger because of the constant pressures and stressors placed upon them. Some of our Northlanders might more easily relate it to the Finnish word sisu. Some of our I think anti-fragile sums up the Republicans in this area who fight hard against tremendous odds and face the difficulties of an extreme natural and political climate. It is my sincere hope and prayer that our party too can become anti-fragile after a rough and competitive primary. That we as Minnesota Republicans, instead of dividing, become stronger and more dedicated to one another and the principles we hold dear. And so we embark on this gift of a rare day of comfort and beauty in Duluth as people who've been entrusted to represent those who turned out in record numbers at caucuses in Duluth, across Minnesota, and all over the nation. We were chosen to represent their voice in a world where money, media, and bigger fish seem to get all the air. Let us be sober, serious, and thoughtful about why we're here. Let us be reminded of Proverbs 29, verse 18, where there is no vision, the people perish. This is where vision begins, where leadership begins. This is where the dialogue happens that translates into why we urgently and relentlessly persist and endure to fight for our nation as Minnesota's Republicans. Next, it is my pleasure and great honor to introduce you to one of our Duluth Republican women, and it's Donna Bergstrom. Donna is a retired lieutenant colonel from the United States Marine Corps Reserve. She is also our endorsed Senate District 7 candidate here in the Duluth area. She is here to complete our Duluth welcome. God bless.
Thank you, Carrie. Bonjour, Anishinaabe Doug, Injiwag, Donna Bergstrom, Navizhnikas, Red Lake, Indunjaba, Magizi, Indodam, Chimigwich, Gitchagumi, Chimigwich, Gitchimanadu. Good evening. I'm equally honored to welcome you here to our beautiful city of Duluth and to welcome you in Ojibwe-Moan, the language of the first protectors of this great community. I hope you have an opportunity to enjoy some of our city's restaurants, our shops, our great walking trails, and if nothing else, our wonderful fresh air. The importance of winning local level elections and our congressional seats and the White House couldn't be more evident today. As Republicans, we lead with purpose and with conviction. We are the party with common sense 21st century solutions. We are the party that cares. We are the party with the Gitche Ode, a great heart. Miigwech and Gigawabaman, thank you and have a great convention.
We'd like to take just a moment of indulgence here, remembering a longtime great Republican who passed today. Wheelock Whitney, I am told, is actually one of only 2 people ever in the history of the Republican Party of Minnesota to be endorsed by this body, both for U.S. Senate and for governor. And so upon his passing, if we could just take a moment of silence to remember his family and loved ones this night. Thank you. Thank you all. I would now entertain a nomination for temporary chair to this convention. Oh. The mic.
I'd like to nominate Senator Dave Thompson.
All right, thank you. Is there a second? All those in favor of Senator Dave Thompson as our convention chairman signify so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Thank the Lord. The motion carries, and the temporary chair will be Senator Dave Thompson. I would also now entertain a motion to appoint Barb Sutter as temporary secretary of the convention. Is there a motion? Is there a second? All in favor of Barb Sutter as our temporary secretary of the convention signify so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion carries, and we have the temporary secretary Barb Sutter and our temporary chair Senator Dave Thompson. And before I turn things over to Senator Thompson, I just have to tell you, I don't know that I've had a better friend in politics than Senator Dave Thompson, and there's probably half of you in this room that might say the exact same thing. Yeah. 3 years ago when I came in as the state party chair and we were down, there weren't a lot of friends around out there. Senator Dave Thompson has always been a friend of this party. He has always stood strong for our principles and our values. He has stood strong for our endorsement. He has proved it. He has proved his conviction with his own actions. And at a time when this party really needed a lift, 2 years ago at this same convention, Senator Dave Thompson gave us that lift. So I am thrilled and honored to welcome Dave Thompson to the podium.
Good evening. Great to see so many friends here. It's going to be a very fun couple of days. They let me out of the zoo in St. Paul. To pass bills, they need 34 votes, and you can bet that in the Democratic Senate, I'd be a no. So they didn't need me there. You know, they say you should never pick a fight with people who buy ink in 50-gallon drums. And that, of course, is in reference to the media. And I see we got the ink-stained wretches and the radio and TV people over here. I'd just point out to all of you that I am not running for anything anymore, so I can say exactly what I want. But for those of you doing TV, this really is the best side of my hair, okay? Anyway, it is truly great to be here, and this is an honor to spend this weekend with you. When you get into the rules fights and decide that we need the 14th speech on the same topic, I might remind you, it's not 5 o'clock somewhere, it's 5 o'clock here. So let's get going. Per the Constitution, our first order of business, now that we've established the temporary organization, is to seat alternates. Now, we have this new real-time credentialing system that has actually allowed much of the activity to already have been completed. So BPOU chairs, I would ask that you continue to seat your alternates. I now have a couple of other appointments that I would like to make that will take us through the remainder of the convention. And I would like to appoint Mr. Mike Vekich as the parliamentarian and Mr. David Asp as the deputy parliamentarian. I'd also like to appoint Kevin Magnuson as the chair of the Rules Committee, Mary Leclerc as chief teller, Linda Prestis and Jonathan Thomas as chair and deputy chair of the Credentials Committee. Bob Olson will serve as our Sergeant at Arms. I would now call on Linda Presthus and Jonathan Thomas for an initial report from the Credentials Committee. Linda, Jonathan.
Right here.
Hi.
Hi, good to see you. Okay, I'm working on being the most popular person here. You know that if I actually read the whole Credentials report, it is 4 pages long. I'm not going to read it. We are scrolling it on the screen. So Jonathan Thomas, who is the real mastermind of Credentials, is back there on the corner of the back table. Stand up and wave. If we have any questions, Jonathan will, and I will help you answer them. What I'm going to tell you, though, is our totals for the CDs, so you can see where we're at right now, and this is a snapshot in time. So if the affiliates, we have a maximum of 16. There are 12 delegates here, 2 alternates, and we can seat 13. There's 1 affiliate waiting not to be seated. On CD1, there's 281 maximum delegates. There's 129 here, 31 alternates for 157 that can be seated right now. There's 3 waiting that cannot be seated. 298 for CD2. There's 122 delegates, 42 alternates for 161. There are 3 waiting to be seated for CD2. There's 357 maximum delegates in CD3. There's 189 here, 43 alternates for 232. Everybody that's here from CD3 at this snapshot in time can be seated. 206 delegates from CD4. There's 87 delegates here, 46 alternates for 133 being seated. That's everyone that at this snapshot in time. 134 maximum delegates for CD5. There's 63 delegates here, 24 alternates for a total of 86, and there's 1 waiting for CD5. 328 maximum for CD6. There's 139 delegates, 42 alternates for 181. Everyone can be seated as far as we know at that snapshot in time. 312 maximum delegates for CD7. There's 137 here, 38 alternates for 172. There's 3 waiting in CD7. 284 for CD8. There's 125 here, 44 alternates for 166 being seated, and there's 3 that can't be seated in CD8. The totals at this snapshot were 2 maximum delegates that we can have, and you can keep this number in mind, are 2,216. We have 1,003 delegates, 312 alternates. Right now we had 1,301 people here. That's very good on a Friday night. So this is the process. The voting cards are over at the end of the table. The CD chairs, go over and get your voting cards. They are divided by CDs. Pass them out to your CDs. There is no cross-seating in the state convention. Seated only by the Senate districts or your counties, by your BPOUs. If you're an alternate and want to be on the floor and be seated, see that hallway over there with the balloons? Go over to that hallway. Your BPOU chair will meet you over there and give you the voting card so you can get on the floor. And again, if you have any questions, Jonathan's in the back. He's got all the answers. Thank you. I move my report.
All right, thank you very much. CD chairs approach the stage and gather your voting cards for distribution. Are there any questions so far? Anybody have any questions? All right. I will now call on Kevin Magnuson to present the Rules Committee report. Where are you, Kevin?
Good evening, fellow Republicans.
Good evening.
There's a couple people here. Let's try that again. Good evening, fellow Republicans. All right. There should be okay. So these are the folks who labored extensively to put the rules together, not only for this convention, but for the State Central Committee meeting. The representatives from your CDs and some at-large delegates. And this group of folks did a fantastic job. Put a lot of time, and I think they were very conscientious. I think we knew that this was a different kind of convention. We went into it thinking that, okay, we've got 3 presidential campaigns, and people are, a lot maybe jockeying for different positions, we wanted to make sure that the rules were absolutely as fair and as efficient as possible. And I think we were able to do that. So please give these guys a round of applause for all the hard work that they did. So in keeping with that goal, we kept as much the same as we possibly could and only changed the things that we needed to change that fit this convention or the State Central Committee. One of the changes that we made was to put a separate agenda item where you approve the agenda. And that was something that had been an issue in past conventions. So now you'll have a chance to vote on, debate, and possibly amend the agenda. The other thing is that we tried to make it easier for dissenting voices, and so that we made a change to the minority report threshold. It didn't have to be a third anymore, but any 2 members of the committee. And then the other significant, I wouldn't say change, but Terry Stone from CD8, who in addition to being on the Rules Committee and on the Constitutional Committee and on the Judicial Elections Committee, he and I took the constitutional provisions on the judicial elections and streamlined them so they were easier to understand. And I know he shared that with members of the Judicial Election Committee, and we put those together and submitted them to the Rule Committee, and the acceptance was unanimous. So I think that was another effort to make sure that people would be able to trust the process and have faith in the rules. So having said that, I make the committee report for the rules and move their adoption.
All right, so thank you, Mr. Magnuson. I would ask for a motion to adopt the rules as presented.
Mr. Speaker?
Yes, I recognize the gentleman. I hear a gentleman's voice. I don't see him.
Right here.
Okay. Go right ahead.
The question I have is, I haven't been to a convention recently, but for many years we were able to at least address and have the possibility of changing the rules more than just the agenda. And I'm wondering if we can make it so we have the opportunity or the requirement for each a candidate for delegate or alternate national convention to mention if they will support the properly nominated candidate.
All right, let me find. First off, it is legitimate to make a motion to change our rules. However, there are certain issues that cannot be discussed at this time. Let me find out if this is one of these issues.
No, well, I don't disagree with you. I'm just Sergeant at Army. Okay. So when somebody's at the mic, I just walk over and make sure nobody's here. Can't have any fight. You would. Well, I suggest at the 8th we had, we made button. But Terry went and made these big button. I thought it was like a clown button or something like that.
All right, sir, we do have the ability to take a motion to change the rules, but it needs to be a motion and it needs to be very specific so that we can get the convention to take a vote. So do you have a motion?
Yes, I do. By the way, my name is Bill Miller. I'm a delegate from Lake County.
Thank you. Mr. Miller, go ahead. What is your motion?
And this would fit in the portion with the delegates. The delegates or alternates of this for the National Convention shall, in their 1-minute presentation, declare to the convention if they will support the chosen candidate, whoever it is.
And just to be clear, you are referring to delegates to the National Convention, and you're referring to the presidential candidate?
Yes, for president, for delegates and alternates both.
All right, so I want to restate your motion for the convention, and you tell me if I'm correct. The motion you are making is that those running for delegate or alternate to the national convention would be required to state whether they will support the candidate selected as Minnesota's candidate.
As the national.
Excuse me,
from Minnesota, but well.
Yes, as a presidential candidate.
Yes.
Okay. Is that clear? All right, very clear. All in favor? Well, we need a second. Is there a second? Any debate? Yes.
Are you considering adoption? I'm sorry, I was away from the microphone. Are you considering adoption of the rules?
Right now we are entertaining a motion to change the rules that would require delegates and alternates to state whether they will support the candidate at the convention.
I'll wait.
Thank you. Any debate on this particular issue?
Mr. Chairman, Ed Fiore Morvez, I'd like to speak against the amendment.
All right. Go ahead.
This is an individual decision that is made by each candidate. They should tell us if they want to who they will support. They should have that right. They shouldn't be forced to. If they're forced to do that, then we should ask about where they stand on abortion. Where do they stand on the right to bear arms? Where do they stand on many other key issues? So I recommend that the convention defeat this amendment.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Bill Miller again. Just to say we require the candidates to declare if they will support the nominated candidate, and I don't think it's any less to ask the delegate representing us to support that same candidate that is chosen as a whole.
Any further discussion, either for or
Mr.
against
Chairman,
the motion?
Point of order. I believe that there's a motion on the floor that has not yet been seconded. Doesn't that need to take precedence first?
It was seconded. Any further discussion on the merits? All right, the motion before the body is whether delegates and alternates to the National Convention should be forced to state whether they will support the candidate at the convention for president. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Nay. The motion does not carry. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Roger Van Horn from Fergus Falls, Minnesota.
Go ahead, sir.
On the part of the rules that state there can only be 10 minutes with 2-minute talks by each person for and against, I would like to make a motion that that part be suspended for the discussion on the amendment to the Constitution, because it seems to me that it's amending almost every page in the Constitution, and we should spend more than 4 minutes each either saying for or against, because even the committee was working on it up until last night and couldn't agree.
All right, sir, I think I understand your motion. Do you want to leave the discussion unlimited, or would you like to make the 10-minute time frame longer?
I would like to change the time frame to a half hour, which seems like a lot, but the Constitution is important to our convention, and I believe that there should be, if 10 people from each party, from each side of the thing, or 10 people from each side, and up to a half hour.
All right, I'm going to restate the motion to make sure it's accurate. Then I will see if there is a second, and if so, we'll go to a vote. As I understand it, your motion is that when we debate the changes to the Constitution, you would like to extend the time frame for debate from 10 minutes to 30 minutes. Is that correct? That is correct. Do I have a second? I have a second. Any discussion? Yes, ma'am.
As people are coming up and making amendments, can we have it stated what rule it is that they want to change for those of us who are trying to follow along and flip through the packet so everybody's on the same page?
Paragraph 14. Article 3, paragraph 14 is what we're talking about.
Thank
Would you
you.
please let us know who you are?
Laura Nowak, SD 34.
All right. You know, you got more applause than the chair. That's not good. Any further discussion? Yes. Any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body has been seconded. The motion is, do we want to extend the debate time frame over constitutional changes from the current 10 minutes to 30 minutes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Nay. The motion does not carry and the change is not adopted. Any further proposed amendments to the rules? Any further? Okay, go right ahead. Please identify yourself.
Mandy Heffron, Morrison County, CD 8.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. I can be personal. You say I have to run for re-election. People don't want me to do it. Don't vote for me. Go ahead.
Okay, number 34C, and then section, the 1, 2, and 3 under that. I would like to make a motion to delete the wording that says "and no fewer," to take out that you may cast your ballot for national delegates to be no more than, but take out the "and no fewer."
All right, so we are on, assuming the pagination is all the same, page 5.
Correct.
Number 34, C like Charlie, number 1. And the final sentence says votes may be cast for no more and no fewer than 5 delegates and no more and no fewer than 5 alternates. And you want to remove the words no more and no fewer than.
No, I just want to remove the wording "and no fewer."
And no fewer. And
so that delegates here have the option to vote for up to the allotted amount, but they don't have to vote for that amount.
All right. I think I understand the motion. Let me see if there is a second. Is there a second? I have a second, so would anyone like to speak in favor or against this motion? Yes, sir. Please identify yourself.
In favor, Joe Torelli from SD 33. This gives people that are running that really want to win and the people around them that really want one person to win to not dilute their vote by voting for 4 other people because it's mandatory as worded in the Constitution. I support allowing somebody to vote for up to the number so that it doesn't dilute that person's goal of trying to get to the convention.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Yeah, yes, Vince Ream, Senate District 49. I rise to speak against the amendment. The type of amendment like this is often proposed in almost every single convention and fortunately is voted down because this is called bullet balloting. It dilutes the quality of the vote of the people who vote for, let's say, 5. Each of the people who follow the rules and vote for 5, then their vote is 1/5 the power of somebody who bullet ballots and only votes for 1 person. And if you take this to the extreme and everybody in the convention only votes for 1 instead of 5, you're not going to have enough people voting for the candidates for any of them to get a majority. So bullet balloting is not fair, and that's why it's written the way that it's written. It wasn't written accidentally. So I speak against the proposed amendment.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Yes, sir.
Joshua Wickander, SD 38. I rise to speak in favor of this change. To tell people the number of people you have to vote for dilutes your voting strength. We don't tell people that they have to fill in every ballot on an election. You can skip to choose an office if you'd like. You're not forced to vote 100% for someone to not have your vote counted. So while I understand that it's easier to elect a slate when you mandate 100% cast a spot in every roll, to take away someone's freedom in this republic to tell you how many people you have to vote for, why don't you just tell them who you want them to vote for? Here's your opportunity to pick the people that you truly want to go on and represent you at the National Convention. Whether or not you agree with our candidate or anything else, the men and women who get up on that stage and ask for your support are committing their time, their treasure, and their talent to represent Minnesota and Cleveland. So support the people that you want to, and don't force me to support people that I don't think represent Minnesota values. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
can I just ask if it's in order for under 34C to have 1, 2, and 3 part of the motion so that each of the 3 lanes is covered there? Or do they need to be separate motions?
Unless the parliamentarian believes that's improper, I would say that we're dealing with the same language and it is reasonable to deal with that all in one motion.
I think that's what she moved.
All right, the chair has decided that we will vote on all 3 of those provisions at one time.
Thank you.
Any further comment?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to speak in favor of this motion. Am I able to do that since the last comment was in favor of the motion?
Yes.
We had this exact same issue come up in SC 13, and we voted in favor of this motion at our BPOU convention for the simple reason that what country forces us to vote for people that we do not support? We should not be forced to do that. We should be only voting for the people we actually believe represent our values. Matt Westland, by the way, SD 13, CD 6. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Ed Fiore Morvez, I'd like to speak against the amendment. I'm not an elected delegate, but I have been to many, many state conventions. When you're elected a delegate, you're elected to vote for 12 national delegates, not 4, not 3, but 12. So you're elected here, but to represent those people and cast your full allotment of votes. So I plead this group to turn this down and let's vote the number that we are allowed to. Thank you.
Thank you. Over here.
Philip Zierman, CD 442B. I rise to speak against the motion. I'm the chair. Is this better?
You're good.
Thank you. I rise to speak in opposition to this motion. We faced a similar issue in 42B, and the question came up, why was we prohibited bullet balloting? And we did so for 2 reasons. Number 1, there are a lot of people here who this is their first convention ever, and they did not have a chance to get on any type of slate or organize or anything to run for delegates. So this would give them a fairer opportunity to get elected as a delegate. And number 2, I think what we've seen the last couple of national elections is there's been a lot of animosity in our party, largely because we've had these radical shifts within different factions of our party as far as the people are just voting one slate. Requiring people to vote for a set number will probably give us a much more representative group that we send to the national convention that's going to be representing us as a party as a whole, and I think it's in our best interest to do so. Thank you.
All right, the chair has decided I'll take 1 more in favor and 1 more in opposition. I'll then call it to a vote. Go ahead.
I didn't hear the beginning, which, if I'm against the...
You're lucky. You're first up, so it doesn't matter where you are. Fire away.
I think you need to vote for the number of people running. It's the only fair way to make things count. We discussed it in, I'm Wayne Wenger, SD 49.
And
what is the proposal? I wanted to hear that. I'm against the ballot voting.
All right.
You got to vote for the number of people that you need, that you want to have as candidates.
One more speech in support of the motion. We'll then call it to a vote. Anybody else in support? Okay, go ahead.
Bill Paulson, Rice County. I rise in favor of this motion for the reasons already stated. In a representative system, you should not be required to vote for people you do not support. You're fully empowered under this motion to vote for everyone that you want to vote, as long as you do not cast more than the votes allotted, but you're not required to vote for somebody you do not support.
All right, so I believe the convention understands the motion. We've heard debate. I would ask that all in favor of adoption of this amendment to the rules, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. The motion fails and the change is not adopted. Did I hear division? I didn't hear division. I didn't.
Thank goodness.
Let's go to the mic, please.
Just do a division. A rising vote's fine, and if the majority stands, that's fine, but I didn't hear everyone in the back.
All right, we'll go ahead and stand, and I can only count to 30, so this isn't going to go well. No, all right, we're going to get the sergeant, we'll go here. By the way, while I have to fill a little bit of time here. Just the nose? Let's have all the no's stand right now. All the no's stand. And stay standing. All the no's, all the nays, please stand. All right, I think we're going to have to try to get a count here. Sergeant at Arms, go ahead. Let's get a count. Now, I believe in free and open debate. In the Senate, we do it like crazy, but just so you know, there's an old saying in politics that, everything that needs to be said ought to be said, but not everybody needs to say it. So if you start with, well, this has already been said, I'll probably say, well, then don't say it. So I'll treat everybody that way, just so you know, equal opportunity.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Over here. Mr. Chair, Kelly Gunderson, Senate District 38, Congressional District 6. I rise to speak for a point of maybe personal privilege or a point of information. We still have alternates trying to be seated at the same time that we're doing a division of a roll call, of a vote. I'm wondering if we can just pause for 5 more minutes to allow for, we've got BPOU chairs, we've got delegates and alternates walking around. I think we're almost done with that part of the program here. And if we could just wait 5 more minutes, we may have our full delegation.
I'm going to say that the point is well taken if this appears to be a close vote. If it is not a close vote, then the chair is going to rule.
It is that this nay that I just heard was as loud as the last nay that they passed. I'd like to say it to people. Because it doesn't fit with the Minnesota narrative. I'm a delegate. I want my voice heard right now. That nay was louder than yays. So tell me how I do that. I want to do that. I want to do it right now. I'm mad. I don't care. It was ridiculous. I know what they want, and I'm going to be loud. I'm learning the process. I'm learning the process.
She's out of order. She's out of order. Decision's already been made. No votes.
Maximum Army training here. I gotta keep those. favor? Well, no, the ayes have it. Well, I don't know. If it's close, you should probably see. Yeah, that doesn't count. Senator?
We are close enough that we are going to count the yeses. The noes may be...
Mr. Chair, I challenge the chair's decision. Owen Miller.
Where's that coming from? Sorry. Yes, go ahead.
Owen Miller, Douglas County. Challenge your decision to continue with the vote when there are delegates that are not seated, alternates that are not seated.
I have consulted with the parliamentarian, and the point is that throughout any convention, there are alternates being seated, people leaving, and the like, and that is something that simply is in the nature of these conventions. So
But this deals with the initial seating. This deals with the initial seating of alternates. I call for a vote on it. I move to call for a vote as to the seating of all delegates, all alternates, before we continue voting. I move for that.
Is a motion right now is pending, and therefore we cannot entertain another motion. I would ask that at this point we halt seating of the alternates so that we maintain the group voting that we currently have. No votes, please sit down. Yes votes, please stand. Sergeant at Arms, please go ahead and start counting noses.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
This side, short one. Okay, Laura Nowak, SD34, point of clarification. If those people that we're talking about who were being seated after the voice vote took place, they should not be voting now, correct, for the division count, because the division count is only for those who took the voice vote, right?
I would agree. That point well taken. That is correct.
Thank you.
Here's your vote, so it prevails. 60 no, 4 yes.
All right, you may be seated. We've got the count. Based upon the head count, there were 404 ayes, 560 nays. The ruling of the chair is upheld. The motion has not prevailed. Any further amendments to the rules proposals?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Judy Summers for Benton County. I just want to request in the future, before we take a vote, that you'd restate the amendment and then explain so that people are clear when they're voting yes, they're voting for such and such, or if they're voting no. There were quite a few people in my area that weren't quite sure what that vote was about.
Thank you. I'll do the best I can to make it clear.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, Bon Clayton, Carver County. I would like to amend Section 6 of the General Division of the Rules to go back to a one-third of the members appointed to a committee necessary for a minority report. This is what we've done forever. And to go down to 2 is almost like saying that anybody can speak.
Thank you. Hold on just a minute. I'm trying to make sure I understand the motion.
I'm not a committee member.
Mr. Chairman, that second section, general section number 6.
Okay, I'm looking now at page 1, general number 6. It says here a minority report of any committee may be presented if concurred by 2 or more members of that committee unless otherwise specified by the Constitution. And the change you want to make, I want to be clear, Mr. Clayton, is what?
My amendment would be to take out the word 2 and then 2 in parentheses and put in 1/3.
All right. So 1/3 instead of 2. So if everybody is clear on what the motion is, a minority report of any committee may be presented if concurred by 1/3 or more of the members is being proposed as opposed to 2. I will find out if I have a second and then call for debate. Is there a second? The motion has been made and seconded. I would entertain debate.
Harry Niska, Senate District 35. Let me tell you what this motion is about. This motion is about preventing you, the delegation, once again from learning the truth about Michelle McDonald. There is one committee that has a minority report signed by less than a third. It's the Judicial Election Committee, and that's because there are only 2 members of that committee who aren't the advocates of Michelle McDonald, who pushed her on this convention 2 years ago without disclosing the truth about her, and they don't want me to present a minority report to explain to you once again the truth about what they've done in the Judicial Election Committee and why Michelle McDonald should not be endorsed by this party. So please vote no.
let us learn the truth about Michelle McDonald before we're forced to vote on whether to endorse her. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Mr. Clayton, you'll have to wait till others have spoken. Anybody want to speak?
Which way?
In favor. Anybody want to speak in favor? All right, if nobody else wants to speak in favor, then Bond, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, as I said before, we've always had a 1/3 rule in this area, and it applies to all committees, in spite of what was just said. It's just kind of a joke to say that we would have a minority report of just 2 people. Might as well say 1, and then everybody in the committee gets a chance to speak. I think we should do it the way we've traditionally done it.
Any further discussion? Yes, sir.
Ken Cobb, Beltrami County. I would just note that it is in the interest of each and every one of you delegates.
May I ask, just so the body is clear, are you speaking in support or opposition?
Yes, I'm speaking in opposition to this motion. It is in the interest of each and every one of you delegates that you hear both sides of this argument, whether it is good to endorse Michelle McDonald. You do not want to make an endorsement without knowing both sides. This is in your interest to know both sides, and it is the intent of this motion to keep you from knowing both sides. In 2014, we endorsed without knowing anything about the person we were endorsing. We knew absolutely nothing. Hardly anyone in the entire convention knew anything about Michelle McDonald. That is the only reason she was endorsed. And this time, vote no. After you've heard both sides, if you like Michelle, absolutely vote to endorse her.
Any further discussion in favor of the motion? Anyone in favor of the motion? Yes, sir.
Ron Nemel, Itasca County. You have heard Harry Niska, you've heard Ken Cobb, both talk about what was being done at the last endorsing convention. Full disclosure was made in a vetting process that far exceeds anything for any other executive position was done on that case. What we have going on here is a situation where attorneys want to take control of what is going on because they believe that the rest of this group are nothing but brainless idiots. This needs to be done so that we can proceed with an endorsement and so that a 1/3 majority in order for a minority report must be put in place. Mr. Niska and Mr. Asp were the only 2 descending votes in our entire committee. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Yes.
My name is Andy Aplikowski from Senate District 35, and I rise in opposition of this motion. I am one of these people that doesn't have a college education who would like to learn more about Michelle McDonald. I don't trust a group of people that get together and just blanket endorse someone and say, yes, support them, without giving us the rest of the conversation. If 2 people of a committee think someone is unqualified and think the rest of this 2,000 people deserve more information, we should have it. This is what this is about. We are representatives of our BPOUs, and we deserve to have the full truth, which we didn't get in 2014. Thank you.
Any further discussion? I'm going to allow 1 speaker on each side of the issue, and we will then call this to a vote. Anybody over here? All right, go ahead. For or against, either way.
Kim Crockett speaking against the amendment. The amendment proposed by Mr. Clayton is a gag amendment. I want to hear the minority report.
I will entertain 1 more speech in favor of the motion. Seeing none, I will call to a vote. The motion made by Mr. Clayton is that under General Section number 1, number 6, a minority report of any committee may be presented if concurred in by 1/3 rather than 2 members of the committee unless otherwise specified by the Constitution. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Well, let me think. The motion does not prevail. The amendment is not adopted. Any further proposed changes to the rules via motion?
Speaker Thompson.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Andre Stuvenel, CD2, Senate District 58.
A great Senate district, if I say so myself.
Thank you, Senator. I would like to make a motion to accept the rules as proposed.
All right, I have a motion to accept the rules as proposed. Do I have a second? I have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Chair rules that the motion carries. The rules are adopted as proposed. All righty. And I believe we are now ready for a credentials report, if I'm not mistaken. Did I hear somebody say 1 minute? 1 minute.
Question to the chair.
Yes. Thank you, because I don't have anything to say now.
Hi. Sorry. Lauren Noack, Senate District 34. I believe that the motion we just voted on was out of order because in order for the committee to bring the rules before us to amend meant that there had to have been a motion to adopt the rules as presented by the committee, which would have been seconded, which meant then we were in the amendment part where we were making amendments to the rules, which means the last motion was out of order because it was the same motion twice. We should have just gotten to voting, if that's what people wanted to do. It was out of order.
To the chair, a committee presentation doesn't need a second. So the motion was voted on and passed. It doesn't need a second.
Yes. You didn't state your name, sir, but that point is well taken, and that the motion was...
Jesse Flieger, SD 45.
Thank you. The motion was presented to the body. That is how the discussion started initially, the motion to adopt the rules, and it was operating under that motion that we entertained the amendments. I'm out of funny stuff to say. We need a credentials report. All right, we'll move forward with the agenda. All right, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda for this evening. I got a motion. Do I have a second? Motion before the body is to approve the agenda as proposed for this evening. Do we have discussion?
Yes, this is Bruce Moreland, CD2, Rice County. I rise to propose an amendment to the agenda. Specifically, I'd like to add an item under other business, which would be a discussion of the sense of the convention on the presidential candidate.
All right, I have a motion, and just to be clear, there's nothing you want voted on. You just want a discussion that is a, quote, sense of the presidential race?
There will be a motion made at the time of the discussion. Do you want me to make the motion now?
No.
Okay.
Was that funny?
Yes.
I calls them as I sees them.
I was advised that this is the wrong time, Mr. Chair. I was advised that this is the wrong time to make
All
a
right.
resolution a motion.
It is. I'm told by the parliamentarian that it is. So the motion before the body is, do we want to add to the agenda tonight to have a discussion of the sense of the presidential race? I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a second. All those in further discussion? I've been asked what it means.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
This is for a change to the agenda under other business.
Other business. All right. The motion and second before the body is to change the agenda to add a discussion of the sense of the presidential race. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, nay. Motion fails. The agenda change is not adopted. Well, you're here. How are you? Now we have thank you. We have a motion pending for accepting the agenda as proposed. We have a motion and a second. Discussion.
My question is, does this set the agenda for today and tomorrow, or just today?
It sets the agenda for both today and tomorrow.
Thank you.
All right, so the motion before the body with a second is, do we accept the agenda as proposed for this evening as well as the day tomorrow? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. The agenda is adopted.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I had my hand up over here, but you missed me before you pounded the gavel.
All right, I'm sorry. I can't unpound it, but we'll do the best we can here. Go ahead.
Well, I would like to remove the part for the constitutional amendment from the agenda because the last changes to that constitutional amendment were made last night, which means none of the BPOs, none of the people in the rest of the state, and I would venture 99% of the delegates here have not seen the latest changes to that amendment. And therefore, if we're a party of the people, I think that all of the people should be able to see the changes in the amendment, and that we should put this off, chair it until our next convention. Table it, excuse me.
Mr. Chair.
Just a moment.
I don't think that's how it works, but I respect it. You also have a liberty conversation, so do whatever, so
That's what you said.
All right. To the gentleman who raised, just a minute, to the gentleman who raised the issue. Since the rules have been adopted, the appropriate motion for you in order to open this issue back up would be a motion to suspend the rules. That motion requires 2/3 of the body. So I believe your motion should be that you move to suspend the rules so that the rules can be reopened for a discussion. Is that your motion?
Yes, it is.
Is there a second? I heard a second. I'm not optimistic for you, brother. All those, any further conversation? Yes.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Dave Pasco, CD5, also the chair of the Constitution and Bylaws Committee.
Wait a minute. I've been instructed this is a non-debatable motion. We are voting on a motion to suspend the rules. It requires a 2/3 majority of the delegation. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, nay. Nay. The motion fails, and we will not suspend the rules. All right. It's your turn now.
Hi. Okay, I'm going to give you totals, and Jonathan, do you want to put the scrolling on the screen? No? Okay. All right, allocated delegates are 2,216. We have 1,054 delegates present, 328 alternates present. We are seated at this moment in time 1,364. There are only 18 people that have registered, and this is all done by the computer that says where the extra alternate is that can't be seated. And I'm going to quickly just tell you. The Hispanic Republican Assembly has one that is waiting. House District 7B has one. Grant County has one. Goodhue County 3. Cook County 1. Clearwater County 1. Big Stone County 1. Lake County 1. Pennington County 1. And Jackson County 3. And SD 59 1. SD 62 1. And Sibley County 2. If you have any questions about your alternates or delegates, please see Jonathan. He knows all. I just read the numbers. Thank you. That's my report.
All right, at this time, I'd like to allow the chairman of the Republican Party in Minnesota, Keith Downey, to address the convention. Mr. Chairman.
On July 4th, 1854, a group of Minnesotans calling themselves Friends of Freedom gathered for the first time in a small schoolroom in St. Anthony, Minnesota. They were Whigs and Democrats opposed to slavery and corruption in the territorial government, and who believed that only a new political party could accomplish their aims. They founded the Republican Party of Minnesota. Derided by the Democrats for our anti-slavery platform, Republicans held their first state convention in 1855, and in 1856, the first Republicans were elected to office in Minnesota in a wave. It was just a few years later that the 1st Minnesota Regiment found itself on the battlefield at Gettysburg, and the order came to make a charge across an open field against vastly superior Confederate forces, to hold a line or the battle could be lost. They did, with the highest casualty rate of the war, but the line held. The battle was won. Picture it. So here we are, gathered again as Republicans 160 years after the first Republicans were elected in Minnesota. Friends of freedom, like our forebears, and equally committed to those original causes and owning that heritage of the 1st Minnesota Regiment. I'm a basic 4th-generation Minnesotan. I grew up mowing lawns, working restaurant jobs and roofing houses. My wife and I, we come from basic parents, a middle school teacher, a waitress, DNR forester, preschool teacher. Our grandparents and our great-grandparents were Swedish, Dutch, Irish, and Russian immigrants. They were nursing home operators, neighborhood bakery owners, a truck driver, a highway department worker, a Russian immigrant fresh off 4 years as a World War I POW working a small farm with no running water, and a miner who died of black lung way too young. Our parents and our grandparents taught us the basics. You tell the truth, you take responsibility, you get a good education, you work hard, you take care of your family, you love your neighbor, and you give back to your community. We learned the Minnesota ethic, and we have lived the American dream. And on the one hand, we are absolutely nothing special at all. No different than everyone in this room. And on the other hand, every one of us can tell a tale amazing in all of human history. And so it is, with all this shared history and these values, this legacy that we have, that we Republicans have come together this weekend in Duluth. Why? Seriously, why? To what end do we gather? To win elections? Absolutely. Game on this fall in 2016. But there's also so much more. I'm standing before you today because I still believe our Republican principles are noble and sound, our policies are the best for our people, and the stakes are incredibly high. In fact, when we look at the condition of our country after 7 years of Barack Obama, it seems like we face a greatest generation challenge all over again, doesn't it? And Republicans are said to be at a crossroads. We're emerging from and we're still embroiled in this contentious presidential primary. And the political class still derides conservatives. But remember, the 1st Minnesota Regiment didn't back down. They charged across an open field, taking untold casualties. No deals, no political survival strategies, a bold act born of conviction. And we too have that same decision in 2016. Not the life-giving sacrifice of the 1st Minnesota, certainly, but a crossroads for our party and for the choices facing our state and our country. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. And as for our wonderful Republican Party, our future is to be found in the same simple, powerful fact It always has been. We are on the side of freedom, and we are on the side of the people. Republicans share the tried and true ethic of everyday folks. Family and faith, enterprise and hard work, loving our neighbor and giving back. We do care. The party of Lincoln believes every Minnesotan is invaluable, and we trust Minnesotans, not bigger government, for our future. The party of Reagan's principles of liberty and justice for all and free enterprise have proven to lift everyone, and our policies advance them. Our ideas work. Yes, we will lead, and we will make America great again. But this is not just about big government, bad deals, leading from behind, fiscal recklessness, and out-of-control taxes. Those are symptoms of a broader decay in our institutions and the personal virtue necessary to sustain a civil society. We also need America to be decent again. I had a chance to hear the two gentlemen who wrote the book 13 Hours and produced the film appear on stage and describe what actually happened in Benghazi. And the story that they told was so different from what we heard from the White House and from Hillary Clinton. A full-out assault, not just on the ambassador's residence, but on the compound where the contract military forces were. Multiple waves, small arms fire, large artillery even. 4 American heroes dead. And what does our Secretary of State tell the families of those fallen heroes? It was a video. What kind of person does that? What kind of person does that? And what kind of party would consider nominating for president a person who did that? This failing Obama-Clinton regime cannot stand. Filled with the false hope 7 years ago that smarter planners, more compassionate bureaucrats, and an inspirational leader would solve our problems. And strangely, voters this year seem to have doubled down, buying even further into imperial presidencies, a collectivist worldview, and massive government to sustain it. An increasing abandonment of our Constitution, the slow destruction of the Bill of Rights, memory loss about our founding principles, people and groups pitted against each other, and the slow drift to becoming a nation of men and not laws. And voters are buying into it. Against every example in world history that proves these collective forms of government compromise liberty, never produce prosperity or lasting stewardship, and almost always devolve to despotism. We're already living with the results. Our economy is stunted, families are strained, the racial divide has worsened, our institutions are suffering, the rule of law is ignored by our leaders, and even our constitutional republic seems at risk. People, the stakes in 2016 are incredibly high. We cannot let this stand. We must fight, and we will. Ultimately, what we're fighting for is in reality even bigger. Our country's founders set the line in just the right place between liberty and order, between public and private, and between federal, state, and local levels of government, conceived in liberty. It's risky, isn't it? It always has been. But we always believed that we, the people, could do it. And not because we're perfect, or because the individual is somehow everything, or capitalism is somehow our salvation, but because people created in the image of God were created to be free. Warts and all, risk and all. And when citizens are free and a limited government fulfills its proper role, we can shine. And our ability to lift up the downtrodden far exceeds any big government program to do the same. This is worth coming together to defend, don't you think? From the beginning, the Republican Party has stood for these things, and we will continue. But we need to win. We need to win. We need to come together to go on offense. Democrats have branded themselves as the party that cares, as though the person who writes the biggest check to government cares the most, and as though it's the folks who are actually leaving us vulnerable to attack that somehow care about us. We're here as the GOP, the Growth and Opportunity Party, to stand strong for the dignity of a job and providing for your family, and to stand strong against the bleak future of a life of endless dependency. And when the Democrats insist that we just need to put more money into their programs and everything will get better, we are going to tirelessly point out that you don't get to hide behind your compassion and your fairness and defend things that flat out don't work and line the pockets of your cronies. It is time to stand up for what is right. We must not bend. We're not going to be held hostage to the political correctness. We're not giving them any more money. In fact, it's time to give it back. No more corruption, no more cronyism. It's time to shut down the class warfare. It's time to restore our Minnesota ethic. It's time to believe in our people again. Remove the shackles of big government. Let our kids dream big American dreams again. Republicans and our candidates will take our cause of growth and opportunity to every corner of this state and every state of this union. We will listen and we will lead, and most importantly, we are going to stand for what elevates the human condition and frees people to exercise their God-given liberty and realize their potential in life. For all of this, and it is so much, I'm asking you to stay together, to remain bullish about our future and hang together for the long haul. In 2016, the Democrats have one thing to fear: a united Republican Party focused on the people and speaking the truth. Not out of fear, but out of bold leadership. Yes, we may face another greatest generation challenge, but we are on the side of the people. Believe it. And what an opportunity we have. What a message we have. And it starts with us, here, this weekend, today. I am so honored to be doing this with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now we get to vote on whether this temporary organization, this illustrious group of people up here, are going to be permanent. That's a fancy way of saying I'm sticking with you people the whole weekend. And you're sticking with me. Now, I don't get to speak to this issue, but if I did, here's what I'd say. Go ahead and vote me down. I'll head home to the frugal Mrs. Thompson. You guys can grab some guy off the street who doesn't know Robert's rules from Robert Downey Jr., and good luck to you. I'd entertain a motion to make the temporary organization permanent. Second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? I win. All right. Now we're going to get on to back to some serious business here. It is time for our judicial elections report, and I want to be very clear about the procedure and exactly how this operates, because we have one initial vote to take that is a procedural vote, and then depending upon the outcome of that vote, we may have a second vote to take. So once we hear from the Judicial Elections Committee chair, We will then have a first procedural vote on whether or not the convention chooses to make an endorsement of a candidate or candidates at all. If that motion prevails, that we do want to make an endorsement, we will then go on to the second phase, allow candidate presentations, and make a determination of whom we want to, I almost said divorce, want to endorse. Too long in the legal business, folks, and so that's the way it's going to work. So just so everybody's clear, that is what our rules call for. So once we have heard from Diane Anderson, our Judicial Elections Committee Chair, and we have heard the minority report, because that has been allowed pursuant to an earlier vote, we will then have a vote as to whether we want to make an endorsement or not. So at this point, I call upon Diane Anderson, our Judicial Elections Committee Chair, who will present the report from the Judicial Elections Committee.
I just have a really brief story I wanted to tell you. I was out to lunch the other day and just happened to look out the window and saw this guy, and he was digging a hole, and then a second guy came along and he was filling in the hole. And during the whole time I was eating lunch, it just kept going on and on and on. And so when I finished eating lunch, I went out there, and they were found out that they were two government workers out there working. And I asked them, I said, what is going on? One of you guys digs the hole and then the other one just fills it in. And the guy said, well, the guy that puts the posts in, he's out sick today. So we need to be having more Republicans elected to office to be watchdogs of what's happening. I am the chair of the Judicial Elections Committee, and the Judicial Elections Committee is recommending that the Office of Supreme Court Associate Justice seat number 6, that is currently held by Associate Justice Natalie Hudson, should be considered for the Republican endorsement. The Judicial Elections Committee Nominating Committee met according to the state party constitution and the rules, and there was one person that requested to meet with our committee. The committee met with Michelle McDonald and found that she does meet the qualifications for this position. Some members of the committee have reservations about Michelle McDonald, and they will be presenting a minority report. The majority of the Judicial Elections Committee recommends to endorse Michelle McDonald for Minnesota Supreme Court. If Michelle McDonald receives the state party Republican endorsement, the Judicial Elections Committee recommends that she receive the same resources and opportunities provided other Republican endorsed candidates. This expectation includes, but is not limited to, lists pertaining to candidacy, inclusion in party events like the Minnesota GOP Minnesota State Fair booth, inclusion on candidate lists, inclusion in Minnesota GOP emails, inclusion on sample ballots, invitations to speak at events as appropriate, and any other resources or opportunities provided to our other endorsed candidates. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we vote on whether or not we want to make an endorsement, let's be clear. The entire report has indicated there is one office that we are going to consider endorsing for, and I will now offer up the minority report from Mr. Harry Niska.
Welcome. Thank you for voting to allow me to present this report today. There's a 3-page document that's linked on the Republican Party convention document. So if you can go there, there's a bulleted list, and I just want to hit some high points on there. And I believe it's up on the screens as well. The minority report is presented on behalf of myself and David Asp. We're the only 2 practicing attorneys on the committee. And we're the only 2 that were not appointed by judicial district parties specifically. We were appointed by the chairman of the Republican Party. And together we dissent from 2 decisions by the Judicial Election Committee. First, to withhold important information from the convention that we learned in our vetting, our 2.5-hour meeting with Michelle McDonald, and other vetting that we engaged in, and from the decision to recommend her for endorsement. First, the withholding of important information. I just want to point out one specific piece of information that the committee specifically voted not to include, and that is the fact that Michelle McDonald 2 years ago got into dispute with the party and filed a legal complaint against the party. That legal complaint was quickly thrown out. It was not well-founded. It didn't have a legal basis, according to the Office of Administrative Hearings. But we asked Michelle McDonald if she was willing to commit that she would not file legal action against the party in the future. And her response to that was not to make that commitment, but instead to say that she doesn't intend or desire to do that, but that she didn't intend or desire to do that at first 2 years ago. So she decided not to make that kind of a commitment, and the Judicial Election Committee voted affirmatively with only 3 dissenting votes, myself, Mr. Asp, and the chair, to withhold that information and to withhold any other information beyond what the Judicial Election Chair presented. But second, and more significantly, we dissent from the decision to recommend Michelle McDonald for endorsement, and that's for 3 primary reasons. The first is that we believe and we conclude that endorsing her will do significant harm to the party. There was significant opposition to her after she was endorsed when more facts came out about her from Republicans, and there is significant opposition to her from Republicans today. Endorsing her will cause serious division within the party, and again, she is unwilling, and when given the opportunity, was unwilling to commit not to, again, file legal action against the party. So for those reasons and for other reputational reasons, the press coverage that has been about her and that we think will be about her in the upcoming election if she is endorsed, we think that she would do harm to the party. Second, we do not believe that Michelle McDonald is qualified to be on the Minnesota Supreme Court, and we do not believe she would be an effective judge. The majority essentially concluded that because she is a licensed attorney and went to law school, that means she's a qualified judge. We expect the delegation to hold members of the Minnesota Supreme Court to a higher standard. These are 7 judges who sit over the entire Minnesota judicial system. And we think you should expect a conservative judge to be able to have demonstrated expertise, legal skill, and to be able to effectively and persuasively defend a conservative judicial philosophy. We do not believe that Michelle McDonald is able to do so, and that was demonstrated in the interview. She said she was an originalist, but when we asked her specific questions about originalism or specific questions about constitutional issues, she was unable to articulate her position beyond buzzwords. She couldn't explain, for example, basic concepts of what originalism is and how it's applied. There is more on the document. She presented some specific samples of her writing that, frankly, did not articulate a conservative position, in fact, articulated the opposite of a conservative position. You can look more carefully at the document, which links to an amicus brief that she offered to our committee as a good example of her legal work. She very clearly, in our view, is not qualified and would not be an effective member of the Minnesota Supreme Court. And the third reason we recommend endorsing her is that we do not believe she has demonstrated an appropriate judicial temperament. And there are 3 publicly available videotaped incidents, one in which she was detained in the Dakota County Court for disobeying court officers, one where she was stopped for a DUI and eventually convicted of obstructing legal process. And then in the 2014, there was a state fair booth incident at the Minnesota Republican Party booth. All of those, you can find publicly available video of those things. In our view, those do not demonstrate an appropriate judicial temperament. And for those reasons, we recommend that she not be endorsed. So specifically, on the 2 motions that the chair of the convention referenced, we have specific recommendations. First, on the question of considering endorsement, only one candidate has come before the convention. We do not believe that it would be prudent to endorse that candidate, so we recommend that you vote no on the question of whether to proceed to judicial endorsements. On the second question, if it's reached, about whether to endorse Michelle McDonald, we very strongly recommend that this convention vote no endorsement. Thank you.
All right, now, we're at the point where the motion has essentially been offered up by the committee. Those motions, as we discussed earlier, do not require a second. So there's a motion pending before the body, and the motion is this. Should the body endorse a candidate for judicial office? And in this instance, we only have one candidate and one judicial office at issue. Because the issue is whether or not to endorse, I, the chair, will not allow any discussion whatsoever on the merits of the candidate, because that is not the issue pending before the body now. If, in fact, the motion pending is adopted, we will then go to the second part of this, which is, do we endorse the candidate, Michelle McDonald? Obviously, at that point, the merits of the candidate will be in debate. At this point, the only issue before the body, motion pending, is should we or should we not endorse a judicial candidate?
Hi, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much. Susan McDonald, Senate District 46. I just would like to ask for a point of personal privilege. My name is Susan McDonald, the Irish way, MCD, daughter of KJ McDonald, former delegate. And I just want to say no relation to Michelle McDonald, just to make that clear. Thank you very much.
That's it.
This side.
Mr. Chair, my name is Brian Gruber from Senate District 38. I'm speaking against endorsing a judicial candidate. We have a lot of work to do this year. There are a lot of House races and Senate races that are going to be close that we can win if we focus on those. We don't do well on statewide races. We haven't done well on statewide races in a long time. I think this year we should not endorse anybody for this statewide judicial position and focus our efforts on the local House and Senate races.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Don Evanson, Winona County. I don't understand the ruling of the chair here that we just heard Mr. Niska run on for maybe 5 minutes degrading her character, and nobody gets a chance to respond to that?
The way the process has been set up based upon our rules is Ms. Anderson, the chair of the committee, is allowed to come and present the credentials of the candidate or candidates, had there been more than one, and that somebody is allowed to present a minority report. Obviously, I, the chair, do not control the content of that report, and it was timed by our timer, who is not here now.
Here's what's going on here, delegates.
Right there, yep.
Here's what's going on here, delegates. First of all, over in Wisconsin, the party supports conservative candidates of the Supreme Court, and they have conservatives on the Supreme Court because of that. We're letting the Democrats run away with this here in Minnesota. Here's what's going on. We saw the rules today where it took only 2 people to do a minority report. Mr. Downey's appointments to these Rules Committee, the Constitution Committee, and the vote I'm a member of the Judicial Elections Committee. The vote was something like 13-2. Mr. Downey's appointment were the 2 attorneys to the committee, and they came with a minority report. They were given 5 minutes to attack Michelle's character. Furthermore, the party put the minority report up on the website the other night. They didn't put up the majority report. Hey, we're conservatives. We're Republicans. We like leadership, but sometimes you have to question leadership, and this is the time to question leadership. We need an open process here. Michelle McDonald is good enough to come to ask us for endorsement. We need to give it to her.
All right.
Yeah, Tim Kinley, CD4, Senate District 43. You want the truth? Let Michelle speak. You've never heard the story. You've never heard the story. Okay? You've never heard her response to all these false allegations. We heard a lawyer up here say things that were...
Wait, that is out of order.
Okay.
Hold it. This is going to be a rigorous debate. I'm for that. I'm in politics. It's a rough business. We're not going to be calling people liars and going to their motivations. So we're going to nip that in the bud.
Okay.
Go ahead.
You need to hear her response to the false allegations that have been presented, okay? And what the press chooses to present. There's another side of the story. Hear it out. Here's your opportunity. You don't have to vote for her, but you get to hear it out. Second of all, Justice Dietzen, a Republican appointed justice.
Hold on. I understand what you're getting to. Number one, if you got a point of order, you got to get to a microphone and call me on it. You're getting perilously close to the merits of the nomination, which we need to stay away from. Defend your position as to why we should endorse, not why we should endorse this candidate. And if you prevail in this argument, you'll get your shot at defending the candidate.
I'm right there. Justice Dietzen, our appointed Republican justice, decided to resign instead of have an open seat election. Instead, he stabs the Republican Party in the back and says, I'm going to give this over to the DFL. Now we're going to have a DFL majority in our judiciary.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Our only
Okay,
chance...
hold on, point of order. Yes, sir, please identify yourself.
Jesse Flieger, SD45. This is about whether or not to endorse a candidate for this. This isn't about anything this gentleman is talking about.
Your point of order. Your point of order is well taken.
Point of order.
Please explain why you believe we should endorse at all, rather than getting to the merits of this particular candidate.
That's just what I was doing, so that's bizarre. Hey, look it.
Point of order again, sir.
If
Not explain it.
Go ahead.
There is an election coming up. It's the only chance to return the Minnesota judiciary back to a conservative Republican Party majority. Okay? Otherwise, we're walking away and say, here, DFL, it's yours. You get it. I don't think we should do this. We need to fight.
Rick Weibel, SD33.
And hang on, Mr. Weibel, before you go, I just want to let you know, I understand that this is a very contentious issue, and therefore I'm going to grant a little bit more leeway than I have on some of the other issues in terms of the amount of time we'll spend on it, but we will call this to a vote once I sense that the comments are getting a little bit repetitive, but I will grant some leeway here because I know this is an important issue, and this is the kind of thing we do. If democracy's messy or a republic is messy, don't yell at me. Go ahead.
Former co-chair of the 3rd Congressional District, was through the last process with the McDonald election process, so I know a little bit of the history and the background, but there's also a small little piece. I'm also the mayor for the city of St. Bonifacius, 10 years of service, and there's a little bird in the room, and I've had this at council meetings. Whenever an attorney speaks that represents your best interests, such as your city attorney or the 2 attorneys that happen to be on this committee, that's like a little canary in the coal mine. Listen to what they have to say. They're valid. Now, there is another process for us to be able to baby step our way into judicial elections. Commissioner Jeff Johnson and I proposed this several years ago, and this body adopted it, and it's called a recommended status, which is a softer way to get judges elected within each of the counties, as well as the Supreme Court judges. By having a recommended status, we're able to share resources and encourage them. We need to let that process work. And when I'm sitting here looking at a statewide election and we only have one candidate that's willing to step up for endorsement, it's not enough. It's not a vibrant process. My recommendation is we do not endorse today.
Thank you.
I rise in support of going for endorsement. It's not that you're voting for this particular candidate, but a vote in the affirmative would be to hear the other side, to hear Michelle's case. I think she has a right to defend herself, and that she has not had that yet. Oh, my name is Alan Kerr, House District 7B. So it's important that we hear from her. That's just a matter of simple fairness. So your affirmative vote is to only allow her to be heard. We'll have a vote later on that will consider whether or not we actually endorse her specifically. So please vote in the affirmative. Let's have justice. Let's hear her side.
Go ahead.
Kim Crockett from Senate District 33B. I love the idea of endorsements coming from the party, Before every election, my neighbors call me, friends email me and say, Kim, who are these lawyers? Who are these judges? I have known nothing about them. And wouldn't it be great if the party could provide kind of good information to us, because we have so much work to do in finding out about candidates and whether or not we'd support them. So in the abstract, I really like the idea of endorsements. But in the concrete, I can tell you that judges in Minnesota who lean conservative don't want our endorsement. It's like the kiss of death, particularly for statewide races. So until we figure out a better system to convey information to one another about the good qualifications of judges who will rule based on the law as it's written and not as they want to make it up, I would suggest that we suspend our endorsement for this convention anyway, and figure out a better mousetrap on a go forward. Thank you.
All right. I am going to allow 3 more people on each side of the issue, if there are 3 more people on each side of the issue, and then we will call it to a vote. So I'm looking for either side now.
Ted Nelson, 64, Senate District.
Speaking for or against a judicial endorsement?
I am speaking for a judicial endorsement. The 14th Amendment of the Constitution guarantees me as a man the right to choose between judges in an election. If that's taken away, we lose our representation in the United States Congress proportionally by how many people cannot vote for a choice of judges. Part of that process is going through and having a choice. If a judge wants to have an endorsement, why are we, fighting that? We should be trying to change the minds of our Minnesota people that to have a Republican endorsement is a fantastic thing behind your name. And not, and Michelle may be somebody that could help change that view. The thing I guess that's most important is that we don't begin to decay this process. And all candidates for non-judicial elections seek endorsement by the party. Are we going to take, if there's only one Senate district candidate or one House district candidate in your place, are we going to deny them because there's only one? Or anything? We need to be able to endorse people, especially if they're asking for it. We need people fighting hard for this party. The demon rats are running us over. We don't need that. Thank you.
All right, that is one speech for. Is there a speech against?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. David Asp from SD 44. I am the other dissenting member on the Judicial Election Committee. And I'm an attorney, so I'm sorry, I am an attorney. But I will tell you this, that this process of endorsement is flawed. The Judicial Election Committee that met is not telling you the whole story. They tried to hide information from this committee, and so they have not earned your endorsement. An endorsement from this party means something. Candidates and committees that seek endorsement have to respect it. And when they seek your endorsement and they're asked questions about it, we've seen again, they attack our party chair, they attack those of us who disagree with them, and they don't want you to have all the information. So I urge you to vote no endorsement.
All right, I'm going to entertain 2 more speeches for and 2 more against. Do I have a speech for?
Actually, Mr. Chairman, Rich Rybergesti, 35, I actually rise to make a motion, and I would like to lay this motion on the table. There are a number of things that I've heard tonight. I would like to take time to consider them. If we move forward with this vote, all the things that have been presented will not allow time for proper consideration. I move to lay this motion on the table.
All right, there has been a motion to lay this motion on the table, which would mean that it is not entertained and voted on tonight. Do I have a second? I have a second. This is a non-debatable motion. The motion is to lay the judicial nomination question on the table and not take action on it tonight. Non-debatable motion.
Point of order.
State your point.
Bond, Clayton, Carver County. Robert's rule says that laying on the table in the midst of a debate on a motion is just deleterious. It's taking the place of voting no and should not be recognized.
All right, I'm going to entertain the vote. The question is, should we lay this motion on the table? Hold on. And this requires a 2/3 vote to do it. All those in favor of laying this motion on the table say aye. Opposed, nay.
Nay.
The motion does not carry. The pending motion is not laid on the table. All right, back to discussion of the motion that is before us. I believe
We're over here.
I was over here. I'm sorry. Go ahead, state your name, and are you for or against?
Nick Rail, SD 44. We are.
You
I
for
rise
speaking?
I rise in favor of the motion to endorse.
Okay.
The body here is charged with endorsing candidates and making this business today, and I don't think that the body should be disallowed from hearing from the candidates, and I think it's just an atrocity to say that we are not going to endorse and we're not going to hear from the candidate. I think the delegates here have made a long trip. They've come up here. They've spent money. They've got hotel rooms. They're spending time and treasure here, and they deserve to hear from the candidate.
Thank you. Do we have a voice in opposition to the
Yes.
motion? Go ahead.
Andy Aplikowski, Senate District 35.
I speak in opposition of endorsement. The reason why, if a candidate wants our endorsement, you know what a candidate does? It calls us. Traditionally, when a candidate is seeking endorsement from a state party, a congressional district, or a BPOU, that candidate requests the delegate list, and they call them. I myself have sought endorsement. You know what I did? I drove to the door of every single person in my Senate district. And through conversations that I was given the opportunity to ask, they were asking me, I was able to win their trust, and I won their endorsement. People have come before this body, this state convention, for governor, for U.S. Senate, Attorney General, Secretary of State, that we have had the opportunity to talk to. They've called us, they've visited us at our home, they've spoken at our congressional district conventions, they've spoken at our BPOU conventions. They did not come through this Judicial Election Committee where they never saw the white of our eyes, never faced our questions, our genuine, honest questions of why we should support them. They just show up here, and we're supposed to just accept that they are going to be, excuse me, I have the floor. We are just supposed to.
Point of order.
Mr.
State your point of order.
I thought we weren't supposed to be talking about the candidate.
Right. I would like my time back. I think I had about 45 seconds, correct?
Yes, you do.
Yes.
And I think you are talking, if I understood you correctly, about whether or not to endorse.
Exactly. We have not had the opportunity as delegates to this convention to vet this candidate. Nothing that can be set up on that stage is going to answer my questions or the questions of the other people here. I am left to take the advice of the two best people that were on that committee, David Asp and Harry Niska. I would trust them above anyone else on that committee, and we should not endorse because we have not had the opportunity to have the traditional question and answers of a candidate seeking our endorsement.
All right.
We should not rubber stamp this.
All right. I'm entertaining one more speech in favor and one more opposed. Yes.
Mr. Chair, Bond, Clayton, Carver County. We are, as you said, we are considering only whether to consider endorsement. Several speakers have actually gone over the line, I thought. But let me point out that since 1996, in every 2-year period, every state convention, we have not only considered, but we have endorsed, except in the year 2012. We have endorsed statewide either Supreme Court or appeals court justices. Because of the incumbent label on the judicial ballot, they did not win. Some came quite close. Dan Griffith got 48% for the appeals court. So these are winnable. An uphill battle to be sure, but maybe we'll have a landslide. Who knows? And our presidential candidate will have coattails. We'll see. Nevertheless, it's important to say, as you said, Mr. Chairman, that these two motions are separate.
Point of order, Mr.
There is
Chair.
there is no reason why we can't consider.
Hold on, point of order, and if I rule against the point of order, you'll get your time.
Georgia Dietz, SD 64. I was going to speak in favor, and I believe Mr. Clayton has already spoken. And I thought that in the rules you don't get to speak twice until everyone who has gotten to speak once gets to speak.
Your point is well taken, but I don't believe he spoke to this specific issue, did he? He spoke to another issue.
Another issue.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Chairman, let's keep these issues straight. We are considering now whether to consider endorsing. That's got to be separate from anything you think about the candidate. Let's let the candidate speak. I think we are intelligent enough. We've been elected by our BPOUs to be able to discern whether a candidate is good or not. Let's let her speak.
All right, that was the final argument in favor of the motion. I now will entertain a final argument in opposition. Again, the motion before the body is, should we as a convention endorse a judicial candidate?
Mr. Chair, Kelly Gunderson, Senate District 38, Congressional District 6, and I rise to speak against this convention endorsing. And the reason that I do is that the current Judicial Elections Committee has proven themselves back in 2014 and again today by putting this same candidate up for endorsement to be derelict in their duty. They have a duty to inform this body and all of us sitting here who exactly this candidate is. And in my estimation, they have failed at that duty. The candidate has had her chance. The candidate has had her chance to make her story. I've heard that from a few speakers on this motion. She had her chance in 2014. And instead of doing it to the convention, she decided she had to do it in the press.
Please keep your comments to whether or not we should endorse.
So therefore, I ask the delegation to vote against this motion to endorse.
All right.
And I call the question, Mr. Chair.
We are now.
Can I have a point of clarification?
Yes, go ahead.
This is Georgina Minwagen, Senate District 39. I just want to know, can she still, like, if we don't endorse, can this particular candidate still run unendorsed on the ballot?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
This procedure before this body has nothing to do with registering for office with the Secretary of State and running she or anyone else, so long as they properly file within the period that a candidate has to make a filing, is free to run. All right, the chair.
Point of order.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, Eldon Spencer, Senate District 49. My point of order is to inquire whether the motion to endorse, which is before the body, either explicitly because it's part of the report of the committee or implicitly because of the party constitution or otherwise, includes the other aspects that were presented by the majority, including full use of party resources. For example, a sample ballot that would include the presidential candidate, and local candidates would always include this person, and those other types of things in terms of party resources, or is that still at the discretion of the chair?
I will defer to the chairman if I'm incorrect on this, but my belief is that any endorsed candidate, and particularly a candidate that is endorsed statewide, would be eligible for the resources that come to bear from the state party. Now, obviously, resources are limited, and therefore decisions about allocation have to be made, but I don't believe there'd be any limitation just because a candidate is a judicial candidate. Am I correct? That's right.
So, for example, if we voted to endorse, we would be voting that if there were resources to have a sample ballot, say, that would have the statewide candidates and the local candidates, those local candidates who might choose not to be associated just with the controversy, forget which way it comes out, they are going to be saddled with that controversy as a sideshow to their election.
I'm not going to comment on whether it would be a sideshow. That's not my job. I'm answering the question, would they potentially be associated with our other candidates? And the answer is yes. Now, because we are in 2016, there's not a gubernatorial race, constitutional officers aren't up, and we don't happen to have a U.S. Senate candidate up, so this happens to be one of those unusual years where we don't have an elected official that's being endorsed statewide. With that, the question before the body is, Does this body want to make an endorsement of judicial candidates at this convention? All those in favor say aye.
Point of information. Point of information.
A vote is being taken, sir. You didn't start talking until I'm taking the vote. Again, I'm going to repeat that. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No! The motion fails. There will not be an endorsement.
Chair?
Yep.
I have a motion to suspend the rules and give Michelle McDonald 5 minutes of speaking time. We have done this in the past at our convention, and so
Wait a minute. I can only have one motion pending at a time.
So that's a motion to suspend the rules to allow Michelle to speak for
All right.
5 minutes.
I have a motion to suspend the rules, and it would be a motion that would allow Ms. McDonald to come to the microphone and speak for 5 minutes. This requires 2/3 on a motion to suspend, and we got to get a second. So is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Second. Motion has been made and seconded to suspend the rules and allow Ms. McDonald to speak. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion to suspend the rules does not carry. All right,
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I rise to a point of parliamentary procedure.
Okay.
I believe 2 points today should be made. The motion to appeal is in order at all times. You ruled it not in order at that time. It's an incidental motion, so it's proper. I just want to mention that. The motion to table requires a simple majority vote. Thank you.
All right, very good. Seeing that is the end of scheduled business for tonight. Just a minute. The chair calls a recess of the convention. We will reconvene here at 9 a.m. tomorrow.